Hello everyone. Today I am here to present or to discuss a topic about the communication process. Before going to the topic communication process, just I introduce myself. I am Navya Bhatt. I am from Mangalore. I have done MCom with finance specialization and currently I am pursuing MA in economics from Karnataka State Open University, Mysore. I have 2 years experience in teaching. This is a small introduction about me. Okay, let's get into the topic, that is a communication process. Before going to the topic, first study what is communication. It is the word communication, it is a very familiar to us. Communication is a fundamental to the existence and survival of humans as well as to an organization. It is a process of creating and sharing ideas, information, views, facts, feelings from one place, a person or group to another. Communication is the key to the directing function of management. So communication is a fundamental to the, or it is important to the humans, means it plays an important role in the human life to exchange or to share their ideas, informations and their knowledge with some other. Without communication we would be unable to exchange any our information to anyone, so that this communication become the part and parcel of a human life. And this communication is also important function of management. Without communication the organization cannot survive. So now let's see the etymology of communication. Etymology means what? The how the word communication is derived. The communication is derived from Latin word communis or communicare, which means to common. It is a Latin word that is a communis, and its means is common or means or sharing. So the communication is nothing but exchanging the common ideas, facts, informations and ideas of one person to another. That is the communication literally meaning. Then see the definitions of communication. There are different persons or authors gave the definitions of communication. Here I just listed only two. uh, According to Oxford English Dictionary, defines a communication as imparting or exchanging of information by speaking, writing, or using some other medium, the successful conveying or sharing of ideas and feelings. That is nothing but, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, it is the sharing the messages, information, etc. through the verbal, non-verbal, or to the some other gestures, media gestures or symbols. So through that it is successfully conveying the information to the intended person. So that is the communication according to the Oxford English Dictionary. Now let's see the definition that is given by the Liggins. According to him, communication is a process by which two or more people exchange ideas, facts, feelings, or impression in such a ways that each gains a common understanding of the meaning and use of messages. That means, according to him, communication is nothing but conveying and receiving of messages, informations between or among individuals or entities in a easy form to understand it is in a very easily. That is a communications. So I hope you understand the definitions of communication. Now let's see the meaning. Means in simple way, what is the meaning of communication? Communication is a two-way process wherein the message in the form of ideas, thoughts, feelings, opinion is transmitted between two or more person with the intent of creating a shared understanding. That is nothing but it is an act of conveying intended information and understanding from one person to another. So in simple way we can tell communication is the art of transmitting the ideas, informations, feelings, and any knowledge from one person to another. That is the meaning of a communication. Now, let's move on to the topic that is a communication process. The communication process, uh, we can also called as components of the communication or elements of the communication, or in simply we can call as steps involved in the communication. That is a communication process. The process of communication refers to the transmission or passage of information or message from the sender through a selected channel to the receiver, overcoming barriers that affect its pace. That means the process of communication is nothing but it is describes how a message travels between a sender and receiver using various channels of communication. That is a communication process. The main aim of the communication process is to um, communicate or convey the intended message and successfully understood by the receiver. That is the main goal of a communication process. This communication process is like a cyclic process. We can understand it through a diagram. This shows so sender, it start with the sender, then it the message what idea came into the sender that must be encoded. That encoding encoded the messages and it sent through a media. Then the receiver decode the messages. Then after understanding or after decoding, he understood it and again he sent the response in the form of feedback. This is how the communication process works. So these are the sender, encoding, message, decoding, receiver, feedback. These are the some of the content or components of communication. Let's see it in by one by one. So key components of the communication process are as follows. Sender, the person who conceptualized the idea, wants it delivered to the recipient. He is the source and the one who start the communication. So already we know the sender is the person who initiated the communication process. So that he also called as a initiator or encoder and communicator. So sender is called by some other names. So sender is a person who generate the message and convey it to the receiver through an appropriate channel. So in simple way, he is a person who send the message, that is the sender. Then next term, that is a next step involved in the communication process, is a encoding. Encoding means the way the information is described or translated into a message. The message generated by the sender is encoded symbolically, such as in the form of words, pictures, gestures, etc., before it is being conveyed. That is nothing but it is the process of converting the subject matter or idea into the communication symbols. So through that communication symbol, it is called as a encoding. Encoding also called as a communication symbol. Here the what the idea came into the sender's mind, that must be converted into the some of the symbols like words or through the speaking words, written or gestures, so or pictures. These are the some of the media or communication symbols used for the encoding the message or encoding the idea. So The converting the information into the communication symbol is called as a encoding. Then next is a message. It is the idea, information, view, fact, feeling, etc. that is generated by the sender and is then intended to be communicated further. This message is the heart of the communication. So it is the message is nothing but it is the content of the information or idea of the information to be conveyed to the receiver, that is the message. So this message may be, the message can be written, oral, symbolic, or non-verbal, that triggers the response of a receiver. That means the message can be, it may be in a verbal form or non-verbal, or it may be gestures or anything. So the message contains all these things. Then so message is a nothing but it is the content of the information. Then next comes is a communication channel. So your sender creates the idea that must be encoded through the communication symbols. Then how the message to be sent, for that we uses the communication channel. So it is the manner in which the encoded message is transmitted. That is nothing but it is the way how the message flows between the receiver and the sender. Means how the message is flow between the sender and the receiver, that is the communication channel. The four main types of communication channels are verbal, non-verbal, written, visual. That means the communication channels are, these are the four types. Verbal means which are the communication channel we can use as a face-to-face communication, telephone, video conference, presentation. These are the some of the verbal form of channel how we can communicate between the sender and the receiver. Then next one is a non-verbal. Non-verbal means instead of words, how we can communicate the messages. That is eye contact, our the facial expression, body language, then pictures, dress code, etc. These communicate the message that sender wants to send to the receiver. Then next one is a written. Written, it include emails, newsletters, uh, press release, text message, social media post, records, then reports. These are the some of the communication channel used for the written one. The next one is a visual. It include graphs, charts, and drawings. So out of these are the different communication channel available for the sender. Out of these, the sender can choose anyone according to his need. The choice of choice of communication channel, it depend upon the sender and receiver relationship, the availability of channels, then the urgency of the message to be delivered, then the cost of communication channel. These are the different factors before the sender to be choose the communication channel. So this is about the communication channel. Then next one, that is the decoding. It is the process of translation of an encoded message into ordinary understandable language. This decoding is the opposite to the encoding. Here it is interpretation of the messages. Means the what the message sent by the sender must be understood by the receiver. That process is called as a decoding. Receiver converts the symbols, words, or signs received from the sender to get the meaning of the messages. Here, receiver converts the message and he understand it in his understand it according to the his conveniency. So decoding is this decoding become very successful, or the communication process is successful when receiver decodes the informations. Then next one is the receiver. The receiver, he is the at the end of the process. The receiver is the person for whom the message is intended. That means he is an individual for whom the message is intended. He converts the message, he receives the message, decode, interpret the message that sent by the sender. So uh, the this once the receiver receives the message and understand it in proper perspective and acts according to the message, only then purpose of communication is successful. That means if the receiver understand the message the sender intended way, then only communication becomes successful. Means how the sender interpret the message, in the same way receiver interpret the message, then only the communication process become very successful. If any negligence take place, then the communication process become unsuccessful. So the here receiver also plays an important role to understand the message the same way sender intended. Then next last one, that is a feedback. If receiver understand in the same way the how sender intended, then he again send the response to or reply to the sender. That itself is the feedback. It refers to the response of the receiver as to the message sent to him or her by the sender. So feedback is nothing but reply that given by the receiver to the sender. It is the ultimate step in the communication process. So it is a nothing but it is a written message sent by the receiver to the sender. Feedback is necessary to ensure that message has been effectively encoded, sent, decoded, and comprehended. Why this feedback is very important? Why the receiver has to give response? Because it ensures the sender that receiver understand it in the same way that he intended. To give the sender that he understood, this feedback is very important from the receiver side. Means receiver has to give response to the sender. So this communication process, here see in this diagram, sender, encoding, media, decoding, receiver, feedback. This is the cycle how the recording how the communication process takes place. But this communication is also affected by some of the factor or obstruction in the communication, that is called as a noise. Noise is nothing but the communication or some of the obstruction or some disturbance involved in the communication process, then it is called a noise. So the sender and the receiver must take care of about the noise, then only this communication process become very successful. So through this communication process, communication process, through this communication process we can understood that this communication process start with the formation of ideas in the minds of the sender, then this and to the receiver's response. So in conclusion, the communication process start with the information of ideas by the sender, who then transmit the messages through channel or medium to the receiver. The receiver gives the feedback in the form of message or appropriate signal in the given time frame to continue the communication cycle. So this communication process is a two-way process where it starts with the sender through the generation of ideas, then it's sent to the communication channel, and the receiver, he receives the message and he interprets the message and he sent back the response to the sender. So I hope all of you clear with this communication process.